Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. Uplifted is a dirty word, written by K. Cern. Galactic Council Grand Chambers, the core. I will not have an uplifted stand in these hollowed halls and dictate terms to me, the Taurinian representative declared, clacking their mandibles with each word, the sensory stalks shaking violently in emphasis. How dare you lesser sapients desecrate this place with your insolence? All around the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives shouted their agreement from their elevated positions amongst the tiered stands. The words lost in the cacophony of howls, shrieks, shouts, and whistles of dozens of alien languages, but not their meaning. They were furious. Meanwhile, the being that had elicited such a response from the august gathering remained silent and unmoving, nothing showing on its strangely smooth, glossy black face. "Order! Order!" shouted the speaker, a tall, almost emaciated-looking Imenian male, smashing his gavel against the railing of his podium. "I will have order!" Eventually, the representatives regained their composure and settled back to continue watching the spectacle unfolding before them, though more than a few continued to whisper at one another. Taking a deep breath, the speaker turned their attention back to the strange being below. His podium, too, was elevated like the rest to look down on supplicants, or at least that had been its creator's intent. None had ever dreamed one would come before them to make demands rather than beg for boons. "Continue," the speaker ordered, of the being, attempting to wrest back some semblance of control. "I will repeat myself," said the being in an even tone, the room amplifying its voice so all could hear. "The Unified Stellar Nations, the Commonwealth of Stars, and the Unified Sol Republic, as representatives of humanity and her offshoots, demand that all laws regarding so-called greater and lesser sapients be repealed, that those deemed uplifted be granted full and true rights as galactic citizens, and that this sham of a council be dissolved effective immediately." Once more the chamber erupted into chaos, and for a moment the speaker was convinced some of the more excitable representatives might choose to leap over the stands and attack the being physically. The moment passed, however, as the being continued not to move or show any reaction at all to the insults being hurled at it. A shudder ran through the speaker's limbs. The damn thing was creepy, standing so still and impassive. "Human," the speaker said once the room had settled once more, deigning to acknowledge the being's species in a sign of minor respect. "I understand your kind are new to the greater galaxy, having only recently been uplifted by the Kurang some 500 of your years ago. So please allow me to explain to you what has clearly been misunderstood by your species." The being, the human, inclined its head slightly, that perfectly smooth head that showed no emotion. The speaker had no idea what was meant, but took this as a sign to continue. "Since the very first of the elders began their journey across the stars, it has been agreed that only those that are able to unlock the secrets of faster-than-light technology are advanced enough to contribute to the laws that govern galactic civilization." The speaker droned on in what he believed to be a sonorous tone. Around the chamber, representatives stamped feet, rapped claws, or hooted softly in agreement. "This was decided not to oppress, you must understand, but to safeguard those not yet ready for the heavy responsibility that comes with the position of this august council." "And the uplifted?" the human prompted. Was there a harder edge to his voice that time? The speaker wondered. He wasn't sure. Perhaps he had imagined it. Perhaps these humans were too primitive to experience much in the way of emotions. "Alas, sadly, not all are able to reach the stars on their own," the speaker replied, spreading wide all four of his stick-like arms in a sign of grief. "It truly broke our hearts to see so many suffering a doomed existence, trapped as they were to a single star system. Why, a single solar flare or gamma ray burst could cause an entire people to go extinct." The human said nothing. The speaker scrunched its eyes closed in its species equivalent of a frown. Was it stupid? Did it not understand what we were saying? "So, with grave deliberation, we chose to save those we deemed at most risk," the speaker added. "To create the first uplifted." "You created slaves," the human stated flatly. The speaker's eyes bulged. "You overstep yourself," the speaker shouted, an insult rage. "We do not deny that the uplifted were not granted full membership to the galactic governance, but As I have explained, this was done with their best interest in mind, and the best interest of the galaxy at large. We could hardly have those lesser sapiens wandering freely through the galaxy now, could we? Fighting their silly little wars, upsetting peaceful peoples. For a moment, the human was silent and still. Then, with slow, deliberate motions, it reached its two arms up to its head, grasped and twisted and tore its own head off. The speaker nearly fainted before he realized, no, it wasn't their head, it was some kind of protective covering. Did that mean that the rest of the creature's carapace was also some kind of artificial armor? What kind of uncivilized being more armor to a council meeting? You restricted the movement of entire species, demi-technological advancement that threatened your rule, and created a class of second-class citizens that you could force to act as slaves in your factories, your mines, and your very homes. The human shouted. The sheer volume produced by such an otherwise unimposing being shocked the speaker enough that he rocked back on his heels. Throwing the helmet to the ground with enough force to crack the material, the human took a step forward. Involuntarily, the speaker found himself taking a step back at the naked fury of the creature's face. It was like a snarling beast, its terrifying eyes ablaze as they bored into him. "If you refuse our demands, then you leave us no choice," the human snarled. "Humanity declares war against this council and every member species thereof." Bridge of the Indomitable, edge of Kurong space. Fleet Commander Karak Thanak quietly considered the sensor readings before him from the comfort of his command chair, idly tapping his finger segments against the chair's arm. 3 ships. Why only 3 ships? They didn't make sense, and that made him uneasy. The war against the humans had been raging for years now. Not so long a time, given the vast distances involved, but long enough that he had learned to treat the humans with caution. More than one council fleet had been lost to human cunning and treachery, and he wasn't about to let these be the next. He had been sent to secure an automated shipyard on the edge of Kurong space, orbiting some unimportant planet he didn't ever bother learning the name of. Not for the Kurong, of course. Those cowards had turned traitor in the first months of the war, joining the humans and denying the council their ships and trade routes. In retaliation, the council had blockaded Kurong space and denied them access to council markets. The council had expected the Kurong to come groveling back in short order, but instead they had simply ignored the council and shifted their trade to the Uplifted of all things. Karak Thanak shook his mandibled head in cold disbelief. The humans he could respect. They might be uplifted, but they had proven, in his opinion, their mastery of FTL technology. After all, no one else had thought to create FTL weapons before the humans. But the rest of the Uplifted, nothing but unwashed barbarians with delusions of grandeur. He'd wiped a lot of them out if it were up to him, replaced them all with Terranian dronecast. They never got ideas too big for their heads. "What are your orders, Fleet Commander?" asked the first officer, a recently transferred techno-organic named PF1AXXVK. He graciously went by AXVK when dealing with non-techno-organics. "Hold position," Karak Thanak ordered, never taking his eyes from the sensor readings. "But there is only 3 of them. Surely we can—" AXVK started. "I was unaware of your promotion to Fleet Commander, First Officer," barked Karak Thanak, snapping his gaze towards the man. AXVK blanched, his pale, almost translucent vestigial scales revealing the hot orange blood flushing his face. What little face wasn't replaced by gleaming chrome, anyway. "I do not trust the humans," Karak Thanak admitted once he was satisfied that he'd put his first officer in his place. "If you ever hope to command a ship of your own, you would do well to do the same. They are a dangerous enemy." "Fleet Commander, please accept my apology. I did not mean to overstep my position," AXVK said, bowing his head and raising his 2 arms out in submission. So much like the humans, Karak Thanak thought, running his eye facets over the techno-organic. A single trunk with 2 legs at the bottom and 2 arms in the middle, a brain casing and sensory organs atop a thinner trunk sprouting from the top. It was a common form for non-insectoid organics, but it still made his wings twitch in disgust. "Speak your mind, First Officer," Karak Thanak allowed, hiding his disgust. "Fleet Commander, it's just, they're uplifted," he exclaimed. "How dangerous could they possibly be?" "Tell me, First Officer," Karak Thanak said. "What do they say of our war against the humans back in Council space?" "That we are grinding the pathetic primates to dust, Fleet Commander," AXVK answered immediately. That you lead our fleets to victory after victory, and that the war is already in its final days. Garak laughed aloud, a single harsh shout. Do you know how many fleet commanders there have been before me? He asked. I don't understand, fleet commander, Orcs answered uncertainly. There has been only the one fleet commander overseeing the war against the humans. 9, said Garak bluntly. There have been 9 other fleet commanders before me. Each was defeated and killed by the humans. Compared to those 9, I have survived the longest. But there are those that argue this is only because I'm a coward, that I dare not face the humans without overwhelming odds in my favor. Surely you have challenged these claims, fleet commander, Orcs protested. Why would I? Asked Garak. They speak the truth, even if they are fools. For only fools would choose to face humans without overwhelming odds. Anything else is doomed to failure. Then you are telling me the council has been lying all this time? Orcs said quietly, as if he didn't believe he was even asking the question. Lies, propaganda, governance is all the same thing. Garak spat. What do they teach in the academies these days? Would you tell your creature mates how many of their children have fallen to the humans? Fill your hive mates with fear of an enemy we have been unable to stop. Of course you would not. Orcs was silent a time, and Garak thought he would say something more, but finally he asked, Are we losing the war, fleet commander? Garak laughed again, longer this time. First officer, we have already lost this war. Bridge of the USN Spacey McSpaceface, edge of Kerrang space. What does that bung bastard do now? Admiral Archer asked, coming to stand behind his sensor officer. A tall, well-built man, only just starting to show his 150 years in the graying around his temples and through his neatly trimmed beard. He was starting to get antsy at the lack of activity. Still no movement, sir, replied the sensor officer. A game of chicken, is it? Said Archer. Sir? Asked the sensor officer. Never mind, Lieutenant, old Earth saying, said Archer. Means the wily bastard is waiting for us to make the first move. Orders, sir? Asked his first officer. If he wants to make us make the first move, then let's make it. Turning on his heels, Archer stalked across the bridge and stood before his chair. Prepare the weapon. Aye, sir, came the response from his weapons officer. Archer felt the decking beneath his feet begin to thrum with energy. Weapon armed. I hope the egghead's got those kinks worked out, said the first officer. Let's find out, Archer said. Ha! Buffalo Beach, edge of Kerrang space. Captain, retired Olak Chief Ga'ulk glanced up from his hammock towards the sky as night was turned to day in an instant. Where a breath before had been the stars and twinkling lights of the shipyards, a great tear in space now hung, spewing, boiling, burning light, and who knew what other non-visible forms of radiation. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. What was that, Grandpa? Shouted a youngling that had been playing in the cool, damp sand beneath him, who was now also staring up at the once more dark sky. Humans, youngling Jessica, Olak snorted, finally tearing his eyes away. If something strange, weird, terrifying, or impossible happened, it was the humans. Humans? Repeated the youngling in wonder. I hope I get to meet a human someday. Olak snorted again and looked down at the youngling lovingly. Did I ever tell you the story of your namesake? End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.